Discover the miraculous covenant of Jephthah. What shocking offer led to divine victory? In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, the valiant warrior Jephthah emerged from the hills of Gilead, a man branded by rejection. Born the son of a harlot, he knew the sting of scorn. His half-brothers, claiming inheritance as their right, cast him out to the wilderness, forcing him to dwell among the outcasts and the lost. In the rugged terrain, Jephthah forged himself into a fearsome warrior, honing his prowess amid the echoes of his mother's sorrows. Yet, deep within, the ache of his familial rejection bound him with grief a cloak worn, though unseen. As the days turned to years, Israel fell under the cloud of war. From the east came the Ammonites, a fearsome tribe, armoring themselves with the intent to reclaim lands promised to Israel. The elders of Gilead, driven by desperation, recalled the name they had cast away, Jephthah. The elders, burdened by shame yet clothed with urgency, journeyed to the wilderness where he dwelled, prostrating before him in reverence. "Come, be our commander, and lead us against the Ammonites," they implored, desperate for salvation, as the weight of their collective sins bore down upon their spirits. Though burdened by the memories of rejection, Jephthah felt the call of duty rise within him. Answering their plea, he accepted the mantle of leadership, stepping back into a place long denied him. Yet, before the onset of battle, a profound seriousness enveloped him. Jephthah raised his eyes to the heavens and vowed to the Lord, "If you deliver the Ammonites into my hand, I shall offer as a burnt sacrifice whatever first emerges from my house upon my return." His voice trembled, knowing the magnitude of his words, an ancient tradition entwined with both fear and reverence. With resolved determination, he led his men into the fray, his heart echoing the rhythm of a warrior as calling aflame with both fury and despair. As the battle raged, Jephthah called upon the God of Israel, reminding both heaven and earth of their covenant. The skies bore witness to his desperation, and amidst insurmountable odds, divine favor descended upon him like the softening of the storm. Of the Ammonites fled, their cries mingling with the shouts of victorious Israelites, reverberating through the valleys that once echoed despair. Jephthah, triumphant, returned home, each step mingling relief with a haunting foreboding. Yet destiny awaited him with its cruel twist. As he approached his dwelling, the door swung open. Out rushed the first figure, his beloved daughter, the light of his life, her joy radiant and undeniable. Every pulse in Jephthah's chest thundered with the realization of his vow, the burden of a father coursing against the weight of his promise. A tempest raged within. How could such a sacrifice be demanded of him? The God he had vowed to serve had delivered him mightily, but at what cost? The thorns of anguish gripped his heart as he stood, torn between faithfulness to his vow and their sacred bond. What kind of God orchestrates such harrowing demands upon his servants? Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select all notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. The future hung precariously in the balance, and Jephthah's heart beat as a drum of desperation. Each moment felt like an eternity, the air thick with unanswered questions. What could emerge next from this unfathomable sacrifice? What did this mean for Jephthah and the unfolding of God's grand tapestry? The poignant uncertainty loomed large, inviting reflection on divine purpose amid human frailty, urging the reader to stay on this harrowing journey of sacrifice and redemption. Jephthah stood at the threshold of his home, the raw intensity of his daughter's jubilant greetings piercing through the fog of despair that enveloped his heart. Her voice, a melody of delight, struck the chords of a father's love but also caromed through the caverns of his soul, gnawing at the edges of his conscience. In that sacred moment, he saw the embodiment of all his hopes and the looming specter of his vow. "Oh my daughter, you have brought me low," he whispered, the words tasting bitter against his tongue. "I have opened my mouth to the Lord, and I cannot take back my vow." His heart constricted, aching with the discord between love and obligation. She stood before him, the sun casting her shadow long upon the ground, as if in imitation of his burdens. "Father, if you have made a vow to God, then let it be fulfilled," she replied, her voice steady and resolute. "But grant me this one request, let me go, I pray, and wander upon the mountains for 2 months, and I will weep for my virginity. I shall not know the embrace of a husband, nor the joy of motherhood." The compassion in Jephthah's heart wrestled with the grim reality of destiny. He consented, and his soul hung in the balance. "Go, and return to me," he said, his heart trembling at what lay ahead. So she departed with her friends, her laughter fading into the rustling leaves, and for 2 months she mourned her fate in the wilderness, lamenting the life that could never be. Meanwhile, Jephthah erupted in quiet sorrow, his days marked by solemn solemnity, the echoes of his daughter's joys intertwining with the relentless beating of his own heart. When the time had fulfilled, she returned, her spirit unbroken, her conviction undimmed. The dawn broke brightly, adorning the morning with hues of golden promise, yet within Jephthah, shadows danced. As he prepared the altar, trembling hands adorned with sacredness yet clasped around grim resolve, he pondered how faith could demand such a steep price. With solemn intensity, he invoked the name of the Lord. "O God of Israel, hear me." As the penance was laid upon the altar that day, the sky turned an ominous gray, but the heavens also braced for the unveiling of divine intention. The flames licked the offering as Jephthah's heart broke anew, every crack echoing with cries of anguish. Yet, through the fire and smoke, unseen fingers of God wove through the atmosphere, transforming the ashes into a testament of his faithfulness. In a land bruised and battered, the remnants of sacrifice flourished into a covenant beneath the skin of humanity's deepest trials. Suddenly the atmosphere shifted. A soft whisper filled Jephthah's spirit, reminiscent of ancient promises spoken on winds of old. "What you have sacrificed, I have transformed," it said, wrapping around his heart the unseen workings of the Almighty beyond human understanding. The tumult of grief was punctuated by the birth of a legacy. The women of Israel began to recount Jephthah's daughter in songs, a mirror to the faith displayed amid grief. For, in her absence, she became an eternal echo of courage and loyalty, forever inscribed in the chronicles of Israel's history. As Jephthah stood in the shadow of sorrow, an unexpected weight of revelation cracked the surface of despair. For God does not take what is offered without returning it manifold, he contemplated, grasping the depth of divine paradox. With faith anew, Jephthah, once marked by rejection, would rise as a father not only to his daughter but to a nation restored. What was demanded was not in vain, for God, in his mystery, weaves redemption even through suffering, igniting hope through what appears lost. And lo! The story unfurled further, a tapestry of God's promise waiting in the wings, hinting at a destiny that would reverberate through generations yet unborn. What lay nestled in the heart of Israel's history next? The echoes of sacrifice and resurrection would call to the future a promise waiting to blossom in time's deep embrace. As Jephthah stood before the altar, the smoke curling upward like prayers offered in faith, his heart was heavy yet filled with a strange unison of sorrow and hope. The flames crackled with fervor, reflecting the tumult that raged within him. The weight of a father's vow, entwined with loyalty to the Almighty, bore down on his spirit. He remembered the words of the ancient prophets, "Your ways are not my ways, nor your thoughts my thoughts," and he prayed fervently for understanding, feeling the weight of Israel's burdens pressing on his shoulders as leader. His gaze wandered beyond the horizon, where thoughts of impending battles loomed. The Ammonites were poised against Israel, and the people needed a champion, a judge who could deliver them from oppression. Meanwhile, across the land, whispers of Jephthah's decision reached the ears of his people. They were drawn together by a shared desire for deliverance, yearning for a miracle that would restore hope. The days stretched thin and heavy with anticipation, marking time toward the inevitable clash that hung like a shadow over the valley. "Have you heard of Jephthah's vow?" they murmured amongst themselves, eyes flickering with unease. "Will it yield victory, or will his sacrifice lead only to our doom?" Unbeknownst to them, even amid despair, God was orchestrating a divine tapestry. For as Jephthah wrestled with his pain, the Lord looked upon him, not with condemnation, but with compassion. The very day Jephthah fulfilled his unspeakable vow, God's favor was eclipsing the darkness that hung over Israel. Suddenly, the Spirit of the Lord surged upon Jephthah, igniting his heart with courage and resolve. "Go forth," the Lord's whisper intertwined with the national cries for deliverance, "for I am with you." Emboldened, Jephthah rallied the men of Israel, forging a unity born of desperation and divine assistance. "Hear me, O men of Gilead," he declared, his voice a resonant thunder in the assembly. "We have suffered long under the yoke of oppression. The Lord has called us to rise against the foes of his people. Do not fear, for our God fights for us." A collective roar arose, a flood of hope sweeping through the weary hearts. As they prepared for battle, Jephthah lifted his gaze to heaven, beseeching the Lord, "If you deliver the Ammonites into my hand, I will offer the first that comes forth from my house as a burnt offering. His vow, once rooted in despair, now breathed with the fervor of expectancy a desperate plea for divine intervention. The day of battle dawned, the sun piercing through the morning mist, revealing a thronging war camp of the Ammonites. Jephthah stood amongst his warriors, their hearts thundering in anticipation. With the shofar's blast that echoed the realms, the armies charged into the fray, and there, amidst clashing steel and the cries of men, God moved. The Ammonites faltered before the might of Israel, confusion reigning in their ranks. Jephthah, fueled by faith and the promise of victory, cut through the waves of his enemy, empowered by the very sacrifice he had made. Yet as the battle raged, an unforeseen revelation awaited him. Out of a humble threshold came his daughter, her voice sweet and innocent, calling, "Father, you have returned." She bore understanding, unshaken in her acceptance of the vow's weight. "Yet, behold, the Lord has delivered us," Jephthah cried, his heart caught between triumph and agony. But in the sacred moment of victory, the enormity of his vow pressed upon him once more. As Israel celebrated their deliverance, a silent question hung in the air, an echo of God's deeper plan yet to unfold. In the hearts of the covenant people, new whispers arose. What would God weave from this act of sacrifice, and how would His faithfulness reshape our destiny? Thus, every witness to this unfolding narrative pondered not only the nature of Jephthah's vow but the promise of divine redemption that lay on the horizon, a truth waiting to be revealed in God's perfect timing. As the dust of battle settled and the cries of triumph resounded through the valley, Jephthah found himself trembling before the certainty of his vow. The jubilant songs of his men mingled with the bittersweet memories of his daughter's joyous call. "Father, you have returned," echoed in his heart. But now it rang hollow, burdened by the shadow of his promise. His daughter stood radiant beneath the sun, a beacon amidst the encroaching darkness of his choices. With each step she took toward him, Jephthah's heart beat heavier, entwined with dread. "Father, the victory is ours. The Ammonites are scattered." Yet as she approached, a cloud of sorrow enveloped Jephthah. "Oh, my child," he whispered, his voice cracking, "you know not the weight of my words. The Lord has delivered our enemies into our hands, and in my hour of desperation, I pledged you as a burnt offering." Her eyes widened, a mixture of disbelief and understanding flickering across her face. "Is it so, Father? Have you made such a vow?" Her voice was steadier than he felt. "Yes, my dear, it is true," Jephthah replied, agony nesting in his spirit. "I sought the Lord's favor in my vow, and now His will must be fulfilled." "Then let it be as you have spoken, Father," she declared, placing her hands upon his trembling shoulders. Her faith was unfathomable. "If it is offered to God, I will go. But allow me but 2 months to wander on the hills, to weep with my companions, for I shall never return." A great sorrow pierced Jephthah's heart, yet he saw in her resolve a reflection of the covenant that promises faithfulness beyond understanding. "Go, my daughter," he said, his voice barely a whisper, "and may the Lord's presence be with you." As she left, Jephthah fell upon his knees, anguished and torn. He looked skyward, beseeching the Lord, "Why must such a sacrifice come to pass? Is there no other way that your name may be glorified? For you, O God, are sovereign over all." Days passed, and the land echoed with songs of victory. Yet within Jephthah's heart rumbled a tempest. He could not shake the gravity of his vow, nor erase the image of his daughter's loving gaze as she departed. Each day, she wandered the hills, her spirit a touchstone of hope. As the time drew near, whispers began to fill the air. "How can such a vow hold meaning?" questioned many. "Is not God a God of mercy and love?" Rumors spread, igniting debate among the Israelite tribes. "He has made a vow to the Lord, and administers this fate recklessly." Yet in the depths of his turmoil, Jephthah sought the counsel of the Almighty. With every breath, he clung to the promise given to Abraham, that God would not abandon His people. As the final day approached, he heard the sound of her return, soft footsteps mingling with echoes of wailing hearts ready to accept their destiny. In this defining moment, Jephthah rose, heart open, spirit trembling, knowing that every vow carries weight beyond human understanding. "O Lord, you who see all," he prayed, "let your will be done, and if sacrifice brings your glory, then so be it." But amidst his despair, the echoes of God's promises rang clear. He is the Redeemer, whose purposes often transcend our own. And as the heart of Jephthah prepared to fulfill a sacred vow, a deeper question loomed for all Israel: what would God unveil through this extraordinary act of obedience? How will his covenantal love intermingle with human sacrifice, heralding a new chapter of divine wonder? As the days of morning waned, and the sun dipped low upon the horizon, casting long shadows across the land, Jephthah stood by the threshold of his grief. The whispers of the assembly grew louder in his ears, a chorus of discontent mixed with murmurs of divine justice. The hearts of the people were troubled, and discontent brewed within them like a storm ready to burst. "Where is your faith, Jephthah?" they murmured. "Is sacrifice truly the path to the Almighty's favor? Would the Lord require such a price?" The voices weighed heavily upon him, yet deep in his soul, the sacred echo of his vow lingered, a sacred fire which would not dim. The Lord had indeed granted him victory, and he wrestled with the ramifications of that victory, a victory now intertwined with his beloved daughter's fate. In her absence, Jephthah recalled her unwavering spirit, her eyes bright with faith, like stars against the night sky. Every moment without her presence filled him with both sorrow and awe, for how could one willingly embrace the divine command in such a way? "Lord," Jephthah cried, "as the leader of your people, give me clarity. Will such an offering glorify your name among the nations, or will it rend our very fabric?" On the eve of her return, as night cloaked the land in silence, Jephthah ascended to the heights of the mountain where he often sought refuge amongst the cedars. There, enveloped by shadows yet surrounded by the grandeur of stars, he wrestled not only with his heart but also with God. In his desperation, he implored, "O great deliverer, do not let the sin of my vow fall on my child. Hear my lament." And in the stillness of that sacred night, a voice reverberated through the air, low yet overwhelming. "Jephthah, your heart is known to me. Your daughter shall fulfill her purpose, and through her sacrifice, I will demonstrate my sovereignty." In that moment, the weight of his choices bore down upon him still, yet a flicker of hope ignited in the prophet's heart. "What shall be the sign, O Lord, that your plans shall not falter?" he pleaded, the whisper of the wind wrapped around him like a gentle embrace. "Trust in my promise. Your act of obedience will be transformed into a testament of my grace. Fear not the judgment of men, for I see the hearts of all." As dawn broke, a golden light spilled over the hills, heralding the return of his daughter. She came forth, adorned not in sorrow but in splendor, the sound of joyful hymns trailing at her heels. The clans had gathered, and anticipation thickened the air, a mingling of dread and honor. Jephthah, with his heart entwined in turmoil, approached his child, who stood with the strength of 1,000 warriors. "My daughter, your time has come," he said, voice trembling as the weight of fulfillment and promise rested heavy upon him. "I have vowed to the Lord and must abide by it." "Yes, Father," she replied, the strength of her faith shimmering within her. "Let it be a grand testament to his glory." And as she spoke, the sun blazed with promise, illuminating the land as the people of Israel stood transfixed. In that moment, the divine tension ignited a profound mystery. How could a sacrifice born of love lead to a greater revelation of God's divine plan? Isaiah spoke of a child born for us. This sacrifice will not be in vain, Jephthah declared, eyes unwavering upon the horizon. And thus, as the sacrificial act loomed near, a deeper understanding dawned among the tribes of Israel, a moment poised to bridge the covenant promise with the future that lay ahead, revealing a new dimension of divine purpose. What new plans did God hold? What profound lessons would be written in the annals of faith, echoing through generations to come? And so the day arrived, bright and laden with heavy hearts, as the people gathered to witness the fulfillment of Jephthah's vow. The elders surrounded him, their faces etched with grief and solemn wonder, while his daughter stood at his side, her eyes fierce yet peaceful, as if she walked in the very shadow of God's majesty. The air was thick with unspoken prayers, woven with divine purpose. "Bring forth the altar," Jephthah commanded, his voice steady as the hills surrounding them. The assembly moved with heavy steps, those hands trembling with unuttered words, each member imbued with the urgency of the moment. A wooden altar was constructed with trembling hands, and as each piece fit into place, it echoed the weight of their forefathers' promises. "My daughter," he said as he turned to her, "may your courage light the path for our people. May the Lord accept your offering as a fragrant incense in his sight." In the stillness, her heart intertwined with obedience and trust. "Father, we stand before the Almighty. Would he not see the love in our sacrifice? The covenant cannot be broken, for with each drop of blood, his grace flows abundantly. With those words, Jephthah stepped forward, a leader not just in war but now in faith. He knelt before the altar, invoking the name of the Lord. O God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, hear the cry of your servant. I bring before you my offering, my beloved child, for the victory you placed in my hands. As the sun reached its zenith, casting shimmering rays as if heaven itself looked upon the scene with tears of light, the gathered populace felt a tremor beneath their feet. It was the stirrings of the Holy Spirit, the promise of transformation suspended in the air. Pause, shouted an elder, his voice breaking the stillness, as he raised a hand in urgency. Can we offer another? Does not the Lord delight in mercy rather than sacrifice, as spoken in his words? Shall we not seek his heart instead of fulfilling our own? Jephthah's chest tightened at the weight of the dilemma presented. The people's eyes darted between him and the altar, the tension palpable. Could it be that the heart of God yearned for compassion over sacrifice? Was there yet a way to appease the divine will without the dark shadow of human loss? And lo, as if in response to their questions, the clouds parted to reveal a ray of light that enveloped the entire assembly, bathing them in divine clarity. In that moment, Jephthah felt the voice of the Lord echo within him. Behold, your daughter's faith shall not be in vain, it shall usher forth truth and redemption. By her name and sacrifice shall I birth a new covenant with my people. The tension shifted, as if the heavens themselves spun in reverence. The heart of Jephthah, a man torn yet steadfast, began to uncover the true depth of God's sovereign plans. He turned to his daughter, whose faith shone brighter than the sun. Beloved child, if your sacrifice is to serve a greater truth, then let us not fear the paths laid before us. The God who led us through the wilderness will lead us onward in understanding. And as his voice rang forth, a collective breath was held. They realized they were not merely witnesses to an act of sorrow, but participants in the unfolding promise of God, a promise yet to be written through time, echoing the very essence of hope. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. And as they gathered close, the truth ignited their hearts. What they would witness tomorrow would not be the end, but the shimmering dawn of a covenant yet to be fulfilled, a divine narrative woven throughout ages, waiting to reveal the mysteries of faith. What was to unfold would awaken a new dimension of divine love that would echo through generations, leading them toward a destiny entwined with grace and redemption. As the dawn broke upon the horizon, a gentle glow filtered through the leaves, illuminating a scene that was poised on the brink of the divine. The people stirred, their breaths unison in a spirit of anticipation, gathered under the vast expanse of heaven, where God's approval teetered on the edge of revelation. Jephthah looked upon his daughter, whose faith remained steadfast, and he sensed a stirring within his heart, a divine urge that urged him to shift the atmosphere of despair into one of hope. Let us prepare our hearts and minds, he called to the assembly, his voice resonant with conviction. The Lord speaks not only through sacrifice but through the whispers of our hearts. His mercy is greater than all our understanding. The crowd listened intently, their hearts beating in rhythm with his plea. As the people bowed, seeking communion with the Almighty, Jephthah fell to his knees once more, arms outstretched in fervent prayer. O Lord of hosts, you who divide the sea and still the raging storms, guide our hearts. Let the offering accepted be one that serves your will. In that sacred moment, the earth shook gently beneath them, as though the very ground awaited the crescendo of divine purpose. Jephthah sensed a profound stillness closing around them. It was a silence laden with potential, the air electrified with the presence of God. Suddenly, a voice rang out in the stillness, a voice that pierced the heavens, filled with both authority and love. Jephthah, hear me. The heart of your daughter speaks louder than sacrifice. She is the key to a new dawn, a herald of my plans, a bridge across the chasm between despair and hope. The assembly looked on, eyes wide, hearts quaking in marvelous unity. But Lord, Jephthah uttered, feeling the weight of his vow pressing heavily upon him, how can I fulfill your command without fulfilling my own promise? Fear not, came the reply, reverberating like a melody within the depths of his spirit. For her sacrifice shall not be in vain, but shall echo through the ages. A covenant shall I establish, not of blood alone, but of faith and grace that shall follow all generations. Jephthah's heart raced as understanding broke forth within him like the first rays of sunlight piercing through the twilight. He rose, taking his daughter's hand, and through tear-filled eyes, he spoke, Beloved, you are called to something greater than either of us realms knew. It is not your life alone that shall be offered, but the profound depths of our covenant, a binding promise beyond sacrifice, for God desires our hearts first. And in that moment, the people stirred with understanding, the significance of their role in this unfolding tapestry revealed to them. The cries of the faithful rose together, a chorus of fervor dedicated to the living God. Hope fluttered anew in their hearts as they embraced the unfolding grace of God, for they were partakers in a divine plan that transcended the immediate. Jehovah spoke again through the quaking earth, "Prepare the way, for I am about to do a new thing. In her honor and their faith, I shall raise a standard against oppression. The sons and daughters of Israel shall rise again, united in spirit and in truth." And as the heavens echoed with divine promise, the light of new understanding shimmered before them. They sensed that what they had thought to be an end was merely the threshold of revelation and unveiling of God's sovereign purpose intricately woven into the fabric of their lives. Thus, the people stood on the precipice of destiny, knowing they were not destined for mere remembrance of loss but towards a staggering future of covenant born in love, a love that would resonate through the threads of history, drawing all toward a climax of glory yet to be revealed. And so the question remained, whispering through the holy air, punctuating their faith: what further miracle awaited as the dawn broke upon the sacred promise? As the people embraced the weight of the moment, a hush fell over the assembly, their hearts attuned to the unfolding purpose of the Almighty. Jephthah, filled with the Spirit, stepped forward, his countenance radiant with divine light. "Beloved ones, our God, who delivered us from the grip of oppression, has called us to a higher purpose. We are no longer bound by the shadows of our fears but illuminated by the promise of His covenant." The soft murmur of agreement rippled through the multitude as they grasped hold of the truth spoken that day. Jephthah turned his gaze upon his daughter, whose unwavering faith had opened a pathway for goddess intervention. "You shall be a beacon, my dear. A light to guide Israel onward, leading us from the depths of despair into the fullness of God's grace." And with that proclamation, a newfound vigor surged through the gathered multitude. "Let us now prepare ourselves for the works of the Lord," Jephthah urged. "Gather your families, bring forth your flocks and your harvests, and let us offer of our abundance to the one who has redefined our very existence." With joy-filled hearts, the people moved as one, a tapestry of unity woven together in their offerings. They brought forth silver and gold, the first fruits of their labor, and as they presented their gifts before the Lord, the air filled with a fragrant offering pleasing to His heart. The sound of prayer and worship resonated among the trees, a fitting response to the divine revelations granted that day. Yet, amidst the celebration, the shadows lingered on the edges, whispering of the time of trial that loomed. For not far from the assembled hearts, the hearts of the Ammonites stirred with animosity and greed, seeking dominion over the lands of Israel. Jephthah, aware of the impending clash, turned to the people: "The enemy approaches. Yet we shall not cower. Our God fights for us." With renewed fervor, Jephthah summoned the warriors among them, men and women whose spirits burned with a holy fire. "We are a people destined for greatness. The Lord has positioned us as a city upon a hill, and though we face a formidable foe, He is our shield and our deliverer. Go forth in courage, for the battle belongs to the Lord." Thus, they rallied under the banner of the Lord of hosts, their faith igniting like wildfire. And with each step along the path toward battle, they recounted the stories of their forefathers, the deliverance from Egypt, the parting of the Red Sea, and the triumph at Jericho, all testaments to God's unwavering faithfulness. In the quiet moments before the storm, Jephthah knelt anew, a prayer emerging from deep within: "O God, we lay our lives and our hopes before You. As we step into this battle, may our hearts remain fixed on You. Let not our fear outweigh the promise of Your presence." A thunderous agreement arose from the people: "Amen. The Lord is with us." Then, a great silence fell again, as the ancient rocks seemed to echo the prayers of the faithful. As twilight began to cloak the land, a luminous presence enveloped Jephthah, and in the heart of that sacred stillness, the voice of God resounded once more. "Rise, Jephthah. For in this day, I shall reveal that the true weapon lies not merely in the sword but in the heart that beats in unison with my will. Through your faithfulness, a victory awaits that will reshape the future of my people." As the earth trembled with the weight of divine revelation, Jephthah stood, his heart pounding with anticipation. Each beat an echo of the promises yet to unfold. With a courageous spirit and unwavering resolve, he faced the horizon where shadows awaited, the stage was set, and a destiny unraveled before them. What triumph lay ahead that would etch their names into the annals of history? Would faith and obedience lead them to a divine victory encompassing the very core of God's great plan? As dawn broke upon the land, a brilliant light spilled across the skies, heralding a new day. The people of Israel, emboldened by their devotion, prepared their hearts for the battle that loomed ahead. Jephthah stood upon a rise overlooking the camp, his spirit stirred by the very breath of the Almighty. The sound of rushing water played beneath the heels of the morning, carrying whispers of hope and the promise of victory. Gathering the warriors, Jephthah addressed them with a voice that resonated through the valleys. "Hear me, O warriors of Israel. The Lord of hosts has declared his faithfulness to us. The Ammonites come against us, filled with pride and malice, but we shall not falter. For we fight not for our strength alone, but with the omnipotent power of God." With swords glinting in the early sun, the assembled men and women responded with a unified shout, their battle cry echoing amidst the hills. "To the Lord, our God, we will cling. He is our fortress." And yet, as Jephthah observed the faces of his people, each carrying the weight of both hope and dread, he sensed the need for a solemn pledge that would cement their purpose and ignite their spirits further. "I vow to the Lord," Jephthah declared, "if you grant me victory over the Ammonites, I shall offer as a burnt offering whatever comes forth from my house to greet me upon my return." A hush fell over the crowd, as those words penetrated deep into the hearts of the people. They nodded in agreement, for they believed in the sacred bond that Jephthah was forging with God. Each soul felt the gravity of the moment, recognizing that such an offering, rooted in faith, would demand an unfathomable price. With their pact made, the armies of Israel moved forth, crossing valleys and hills, their feet pounding against the earth as one. Jephthah, strong and resolute, led the charge, praying fervently under his breath. "Lord, grant us strength. Deliver us once more." As they neared the enemy camp, a deep silence enveloped the battlefield, the air thick with anticipation. Jephthah raised his sword, a gleam of divine purpose lighting his eyes. "This day, we shall witness the hands of our God at work. Press on, O Israel, and let our faith be our armor." With a thunderous roar, the armies collided, the clash of swords ringing out like a symphony of warfare. Jephthah fought fiercely, each movement an act of faith. The Ammonites fell before them, for the fear of the Lord gripped their hearts, and none could withstand the power of the Almighty at work through his chosen people. Victory surged forth, casting the shadows of despair aside. The day was theirs. Yet, as the dust began to settle and the cries of triumph filled the air, Jephthah's heart grew heavy as he was reminded of his vow. Would he truly face the price of his promise? As he returned home, the weight of what awaited him loomed larger than the enemy he had just bested. And upon his doorstep stood his daughter, dancing with joy at his homecoming, unaware of the burden that throbbed in her father's heart. In that moment, a profound silence settled over Jephthah as he looked upon her, the embodiment of his hope and love. The echoes of his vow flashed before him, a whisper in the winds of providence, stirring a deeper revelation within. What would become of his daughter, the very light he had proclaimed she would be? And what greater purpose lay within the folds of his desperate promise? Even as the dust of victory settled, questions lingered like heavy clouds, heralding the unfolding of a divine mystery concealed within the tapestry of God's sovereign plan for his people. As the sun dipped low in the horizon, casting its golden rays upon the land, Jephthah stood before the altar of the Lord, trembling yet resolute. The flames flickered, casting shadows that danced in time with his heavy heart. "O God of glory, what have I done?" he breathed, as the weight of his vow settled over him like a shroud. Memories surged, the joyful face of his daughter mingled with the prayer of a warrior, giving birth to a sacred longing entangled with sorrow. "Father," she interjected softly, her eyes meeting his with unwavering certainty. "The call of the Lord is upon us. A greater purpose than our understanding lies in fulfillment." Her words, steadfast and full of grace, anchored his tumultuous spirit amidst the raging storm within him. In the crucible of his agony, he witnessed the profound depths of her faith, igniting a flicker of hope within him. Upon that altar were not merely the flames of a sacrifice, but the essence of an unfolding narrative, a narrative where sacrifice intertwined with divine intention, a story that, while tragic in its plea, also echoed the might of mercy that permeated the very fabric of God's omnipotent will. "Let it be, then," he proclaimed with a voice as resolute as the mountains. "Let us seek the heart of his will, for within it lies redemption that transcends flesh and blood." And as Jephthah surrendered his vow, he sensed the shifting of the heavens, the air thick with anticipation of divine intervention. The ground beneath trembled as the presence of the Lord enveloped the assembly. A stillness hung in the air, and the voice of God reverberated through the valley, a sonorous echo of grace and mercy. Jephthah, for the price paid in obedience will birth life anew. For in sacrifice, I will reveal my plans, the better covenant born not of loss but of victory shaped in love. As those words danced upon his spirit, Jephthah's heart began to resonate with an understanding only the Sovereign One could bestow. From the depths of sorrow sprang a resolve that defied the human condition. The very essence of their covenant story morphed, and the realization of a redemptive plan cast shadows of despair away. A wave of murmurs spread through the assembly as they grasped the essence of the moment. Jephthah turned to his daughter, and with tears shimmering like diamonds in the twilight, he declared, "We are partakers, not just of sacrifice, but of the divine legacy we build together. Your faith shall inspire generations, it shall echo through the corridors of time, heralding a new dawn." The cries of faith united, merging with the fervor of the crowd, igniting the spirit of Israel. They stood not only as witnesses but as part of a grand narrative set forth by their God. "We will not shrink back," they called, voices rising like a resounding chorus through the hills. "Our God the Deliverer makes us whole." And as Jephthah bound the sacrifice offered to the altar, he recognized not just a final act but a commitment to walk perpetually in faith, trusting the Lord who performs wonders beyond measure. Today is but a stepping stone toward the great revelation of his kingdom. Jephthah cried, his voice ringing with renewed vigor. From this moment forth, we shall remember not just the loss, but the legacy of faith, for our lives shall sing praises to him, and the broken and the blessed, they unitedly proclaimed, a chorus resonating across the valley. As the flames consumed the offering, they witnessed the rise of a new spiritual reality, a belief in a God who brings beauty from ashes, and who transforms sorrow into everlasting joy. Thus, history marked the covenant renewed through the unwavering legacy of Jephthah's daughter. As the anthem of remembrance echoed through the hearts of Israel, her story would ripple through time, illuminating paths toward faith, hope, and future generations' understanding of divine grace. The shadows of sacrifice entwined with the light of hope as God's promises unfurled like a blossoming flower, inviting every seeker to embrace the depths of what it meant to trust in the Almighty. Their moment concluded not in mourning, but in the celebration of a miraculous journey adorned in faith and obedience. The eternal question intertwined within their covenant remained: what greater wonders awaited those who dared to believe? And so concluded the tale of Jephthah and his daughter, forever inscribed in the annals of biblical legacy, serving as a testament to generations about the beauty of divine faithfulness and the magnificence of God's purpose fulfilled. Do not miss what God has in store for you. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you stay connected to His Word and witness more powerful biblical stories. Leave a like now to spread this divine truth through the algorithm. Comment below with your reflections on how this miraculous tale has transformed your faith journey. And don't wait even one more second, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear God's unwavering truth. Let us proclaim His greatness together.